The Flash Season 4, Episode 9, Don't Run. Now this, of course, is the mid-season finale. It is the end of The Flash as far as 2017 is concerned. And it was a pretty okay episode. It wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be, if I'm being totally honest. It wasn't, like, super crazy or anything like that. It kind of felt like it was just another normal episode, except for, the very end. That's when things like really picked up and got, super duper crazy. But I did like the episode overall. I think it was really cool how things came together because in the very beginning it was like, okay, it seems like Barry being attacked and taken, and then Caitlin being attacked and taken. Probably not a coincidence, especially considering the main villain for the season. And I was like, okay, they referenced that in the beginning, and then it kind of goes away. So I was kind of waiting. I was like, is this really just a coincidence, or is this really going to, kind of merge together? Because I'm like, it could be, even if the storylines never actually crossed, I'm like, this probably is totally planned. Like, there's probably a way that somehow the thinker was like, yep, gonna have, I totally don't remember the villain's name, but gonna have her go get Caitlin, gonna have her take down this other guy, kidnap him, set up this whole crazy scenario, and at the exact same time, I'll still Barry. And I'm like, alright, there's gotta be some plan. Like, he probably just knew. Like, honestly, there could have been zero contact, and he just knew that because of Caitlin's relationship with this woman, that this is when she was gonna attack. I mean, that's like his power is to know, like, seemingly the impossible things. And it's just like, okay, well, let's see how this plays out. And ultimately, for a super long time, it was just two separate stories. Barry was trapped. For some reason, they showed him take, like, I don't know why this like really caught me off guard. It was like messing with my head the whole episode. But he took his gloves off, and I was like, whoa, like that blew my mind because I never realized for once that the gloves were gloves. I don't know why. Like he's just in a onesie for something, or for some reason. But that like really got to me when he was trying to like vibrate out of there, and then um, he ends up taking his gloves off when he realizes like nothing's happening. And for some reason, that just really got to me. I was like, I can see his hands. So it was weird. But anyway, he's trapped in there, and Caitlin is being trapped by her, former boss, so-so boss. And it's like, okay, stories are cool, fairly simple, not that big of a deal. And, we have our kind of third storyline, which is actually what's going on at Star Labs as everyone is trying to figure out how do we get both Barry and Caitlin. And I actually thought that was cool. I didn't think that would actually lead to the moment it did. Excuse me, but I actually loved it for that. Iris having to make that big decision. I was like, okay, that's really cool. Like, this was, I think, the first episode where they were like, you are the boss. Plain and simple, you are the boss here now. Like, you are the one who says, you do this and you do that. And they've definitely touched on that before. It was like, all right, well, what do we do now? And they had a scene like that where Iris was like, all right, this is like the plan. But this was that moment where it was like, when it comes down to it, even when everyone wants the same thing, you are the one who chooses if we get that thing. Like, you have to make this tough choice, Barry or Caitlin. And I thought that was cool because it was not just, you are in charge. Like, everyone kind of looks towards Iris now. But she's also, with her being in charge, she's the one who has to make those tough decisions where they're doing things where it's like, we're trying to do this and the stuff's being overheated. And she had to make that tough choice. And it's like, all right, Caitlin's in a compromising position. She can't really use her abilities. Barry can take care of himself, so we're gonna find Caitlin. What kind of annoyed me, made me a little upset, was that it took them like 2.5 seconds to find her, and then they teleported right there. I was like, that took them like 30 seconds, and it was like, oh, we found her. Let's poof, we're everything's all said and done. It was like, something about that. It was just really funny, but it also kind of bugged me. I was like, man, if they just did that from the beginning, they would have found her in like half a second. It was just like, that's crazy to me. Like, it took them so little time to actually end up finding her, but the episode would have been over. That's just, one of those funny story things where, and of course that's a natural thing where you, as the boss, you have to make that tough call. So, of course, it just took time, but it was so funny that it ended up being that fast. It was just like, boom, everything's good. Everything's great, actually. It was like, we found her. Caitlin survived. The other dude survived with, my rating powers. And let's go. Simple. We got to see Dibney use his powers a little bit as well. Also, for people who may have skipped over it, there was another one of those like stretched scenes, as they call it, where he was like making silly shapes and stuff. That was pretty cool. Those are just like little scenes that they throw in there, so I like that. But everything seemed like it was kind of working out fine. Barry pulled off a super badass move where he was moving so fast that he seemed invisible. So I love that. I have to imagine, considering everything played out the way that it did, that maybe it's really hard to tell, but I don't know if the Thinker truly thought that what happened was impossible. But at the same time, I'm like, he had to have known that that was a possibility because with him being the character he is, even if that was seemingly impossible, he is the Thinker. Before he even had the time physically to push that button to get rid of that shield, his brain was moving 1,000,000 miles per hour. So he knew Barry had to have been it. Like, he even said it was impossible. But no one who is at the level he's at mentally would be like, impossible. And then just instantly undo the shield. So he knew Barry was in there. So, like, all of that had to have been a part of the plan. Because also he wasn't like, freaking out or anything. He knew what was happening. Like, we're getting closer to that hint of what he truly wants. But, now that he has a new body, it's like, well, is he able to take the powers of the bodies? Like, that's the big question in the air now, because he talks about how it's like, and he also references the fact that he's made a lot of metahumans. I thought that was interesting. I don't know, because that sounded like more than just I made a busload. He's like, I've made many metahumans. I was like, that seems like a interesting little storyline we should be focusing on. But he mentions that your unique abilities are the only ones that are allowing me to do this, and then he transfers his mind into this guy's body because his powers were already mental. So it's like his body was able to cope with the excess mental capabilities because it wasn't as insane as the Thinkers, where his body was like it was like way over the top, but it was just enough for him to transfer bodies. So that I thought was pretty interesting. Also, this keeping in line with the CW basically just spinning a wheel of extras in their shows, like their extra actors. This guy was definitely a Supernatural. Like this season, that was probably like 2 or 3 months ago. He was in an episode of Supernatural, so it was super funny. Like, as soon as he showed up, I was like, "That's the dude who plays one of the Witch brothers, or one of the Witch siblings." So I was like, "There he is." Different CW. So I thought that was funny. Every time they show up in another show, it just makes me laugh so much because I'm like, the CW is just like, okay, you died on there or you were just an extra on there. We're just going to scoot you right on over this way and now be over here. So I assume he'll be in the show quite a bit since he's like the new physical body. But we get that clue in this episode that the Thinker kind of wants Barry's body, but he sort of doesn't because he totally could have taken it, but maybe he has to like go through steps. Maybe it has to be like this person with the who already has a power that's linked to his brain. So maybe he has to take that step before he's able to get to Barry's, because technically, even though Barry's mind may not move as fast, physically it does. And also mentally it does move faster than a normal human's body. But I feel like he's almost building Barry up a little bit. And then for whatever, once again, it's insane because he captured him. He could have taken his body. Like if that was the sole reason for this, he could have done that, but he didn't. So there's some other elements going on, like he's making all these metahumans, and he needs to like capture other metahumans, and like the guy, the last time the woman was in the episode that was going after Caitlyn, the dude who had like the crazy drug tears, he like chased that guy down and attacked him. It was like you're basically, that was something that like the plan kind of went awry, and so he had to fix it himself. So it's like he has this set plan in motion, and we still don't know 100% what it is because there's got to be something to it. Like if he wanted to just keep Barry trapped, he could have done that himself as well. Like no matter what they did, he could have done that. But he let Barry escape. Another big part of that, of course, is the fact that he had like the dead body in his house at the end. So naturally, he knew that like he let him escape, for sure. But it's just crazy. It's like, all right, so he seemingly wants his body. He probably does, but it's just like, what is that extra step? Like, what is missing there that he can't just jump into Barry's body? So, aside from the fact that Barry's the main character, he can't lose and be taken over. So, it's just a big mystery. It's still a mystery, like, which is insane. Like, I was also hoping, this really sucked, but I'm just waiting for that flashback to be like, what made him a villain? We got the origin of who he was, and we still don't have, like, that one little chunk of story that said, this is why this couple, like this married couple, this is why they became, supervillains. Like, why did this happen? They do touch on, however, the fact that the Thinker's wife, I wish I could remember either of their names right now, they're the names that they give them, but they do touch on the fact that, she's willing to sacrifice anything for her husband. And I thought that was very interesting because they kind of, it seemingly, what they based on some of the visuals I noticed, it seems like they're kind of hinting at the fact that she's not as happy anymore. Like especially by the end, because it's such a weird transition. It's because it was something that he said earlier, where it was like even if it's not. I think he said if it's not my body, the words are still mine, or something like that. And I thought that was just his body failing, and at some point they would have to make some new machine or something. But it was because the plan was to switch bodies very soon. So that happens by the end, and you can see that it's a little odd. It would be odd for most people, I think. And it was just like, huh. It seemed like they were hinting at that quite a bit about her being willing to sacrifice anything, even though at this point kind of what she's sacrificing is the man that she knew. And it's like that's that weird dichotomy. It's like you're sacrificing anything for this person, but that person is starting to go away. So how far does that sacrifice go? So I thought that was interesting. At least that's how I kind of picked up on it. That was just me, but I thought it was still cool. So I'm looking forward to how that expands. And um, in all honesty, I would love it for it to not go that route, because I think that's really common, where it's like the person that's like, I'm sticking with them to the end, and then some bad thing happens, and that's kind of how the heroes win, is because the person that was working with the villain decides to turn like at the last second. So I hope that doesn't happen, especially because they're married. It's like it would just be cool to see that just work, where they just stay married, and it's just crazy. And it's like, man, she's sticking with him, he's getting crazier, and I just feel like there's gonna be something that doesn't work. But even if that is the case, I'm sure they could find an easy way to make it where the heroes don't gain anything from that, because I'm sure he's the thinker. That has to be in his head. It's like the odds of her no longer sticking by my side are this much, stuff like that. So I'm sure that's already there. It has to be, even though obviously the writers are just humans. They are writing a character that thinks of everything, so that sort of stuff has to be in his head, where it's like, okay, this is these are the possibilities and stuff. So I hope that comes up a lot more in the second half of the season. That should be really cool. But of course, the end of the episode comes along, and we do find out that the Thinkers transferred bodies. But not only that, we have the setup of the alarm going off. It's like, okay, well, all right, Barry, poof, he zooms off to the house, and then he gets the phone call. We get the crazy little recap, and then he sees that knife that he got earlier in the episode, which I thought was genius, and it was really funny. As soon as he said, "Oh, we got a thing," there's like no. I think he did say who it was from, but as soon as he picked it up, I was just like, because at first I think he did mention something about there not being a tag or something like that, and it was like, okay. So he opens the box and there's one knife. He's like, it's not even a full set. That's just lazy. I was like, nobody on the in the universe is so lazy that they would give you half of a 2-knife set. It wasn't like, oh, there's missing a couple pieces. He just gave us one piece. He threw it in a box. It was one of two, and I thought that was so genius. And it came around in the end. It was like, it's a regift, if you will. And I thought that was such a good idea. And it's like, oh, they're the two blades. And of course, it was I would assume it was like the second blade or whatever. Or I guess it was it was the one that he touched, actually. It was weird that both blades were actually there. But, because I was like, I already knew what it was going to be a little bit. And then they showed it, but I guess they kind of had to have it both. But I was like, okay, that's pretty awesome. It was the other blade. And that was just really cool. It just made total sense. So you can't wait to see how things play out. Barry is arrested. He is innocent, but of course he's going to court, and things seem to be pretty nuts. And it seems like he's the Flash, he can run through walls. So it seems like there is a part where he's dealing with the cops and stuff, and they toy around with the idea of everybody knowing his secret identity. I don't think that's going to happen. I would love to see that happen, just for the fact that no superhero show ever does that. Like, no one does that, where it's just like, yep, whole town, whole world, I'm the Flash. That just doesn't happen. So if it did, somebody else would come along and be like, poof, everybody's memory gets erased or something like that. But it was definitely a cool ending. All in all, a good episode. Like I said, not as crazy and exciting as I thought it was going to be, but I still enjoyed it. I definitely thought it was a great end. For sure, the ending, without a doubt, was awesome. Like, it was just like, it was also kind of creepy when he called him, and it was like, oh crap, he actually changed bodies. Everything seemed nice and happy. It was like, oh, Kaylin and the other dude end up escaping, and everything's good. And it was like, okay, let's what's gonna happen here? Because of course everything played out like a normal episode until that end, and I was just like, okay, everything seems really normal here. So let's see, where's the craziness? And then he calls him, and it's just like, oh, this is crazy. This is nuts. So definitely looking forward to the show coming back next year. Of course, we'd love to know what you guys thought about this episode. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts about it. And naturally, I want to know your theories for the mid-season premiere. What you think is going to happen. What you guys want to see happen with Barry going to prison. How that's all going to play out. What the Thinker is planning. I will, as always, whenever we get like a small hint, I want to know your theories. Like, what in the world is going on? Why couldn't he just jump into Barry's body? Like what is going on there? What does he truly want from Barry? Because I'll be honest, when Barry was first in that shield, I thought, like, because of the way it looked, because it was almost like the same color as his lighting, where it was yellow, but it also had like red in it. I was like, that would be so cool if that was actually taking his power away. Like, they didn't need his body, they needed his power, because the speed and the regeneration of having uh, super speed and fast molecules and stuff is the fact that his body would heal so much faster. So maybe they know how to utilize that into completely healing the Thinker's body. That was a theory I had that ended up totally not being the case in any way, shape, or form. It totally would have worked too, because of how they had the scene where it's like, oh, it's not going to do anything, and then he takes his gloves off, and it makes it, because it's like actual skin to shield contact. If that was going to be the case, it would have made it even easier to take his powers. But I thought that would have been a really cool little thing, where it's like, oh, his powers are being taken from him. Even though we kind of saw that, that was sort of what they did with Zoom, like a little bit. But I would love to have seen that. That would have been a really sneaky little way to do that. And they could totally bring it back, where it's like he doesn't feel it at first, but him being in prison is almost like a part of that, where it's like, I don't want to make it super obvious that I'm stealing his powers. Also, this kind of stops him from running around being the Flash. So, I don't know. That was just a cool little thing. I don't think that's the case, but that would be really awesome if it came back and it turned out that him touching the shield was like him losing like, minuscule amounts of his power. I think that would actually be really cool, but I don't think they're actually going to do that. But I just thought that was a cool little thing. That was like the first thing I thought was like, oh, he touched that shield, it's probably sucking his powers out or something. I don't think it did that, but that would be nice. That would be cool if I was right about a theory that I'm not even that confident in. But like I said, would love to know your theories on what's going on with the Thinker. Like, we got a new clue, what's going on there. Theories for how everything's going to play out, and of course just what you guys want to see from the mid-season premiere next year. And naturally, I want to know what you guys thought about this episode in general, so please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.